The Zylaxian ship emerged from hyperspace like liquid mercury, its bioorganic hull reflecting the sun's rays in mesmerizing patterns. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the EDS Sentinel, Earth's supposedly most advanced vessel, watching the alien craft with carefully concealed amusement. The ship before them was impressive, but not for the reasons the Zylaxians believed. The alien vessel dwarfed the Sentinel, its 100-kilometer length a deliberate display of technological superiority. As it approached, massive sensor arrays swept Earth's orbital defenses, analyzing what the Zylaxians would see as primitive human technology. They would find exactly what humanity wanted them to find, nothing more than basic fusion drives, rudimentary shield technology, and conventional weapon systems. "They're hailing us, Admiral," Lieutenant Rivera reported from her communication station. "Standard frequency, unencrypted." On screen, Chen ordered, straightening her uniform. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a being that looked like a cross between a mantis and a fox, with iridescent scales and multiple sets of eyes arranged in complex patterns. "I am High Commander Vexthor of the Zylaxian Empire," the alien announced, its translator converting its crystalline language into Earth standard. "We have detected your species' first attempts at faster-than-light travel." "How quaint." Chen maintained a carefully neutral expression. "Welcome to Earth space, High Commander. I am Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We are honored by your presence." The alien's upper eyes shifted in what might have been amusement. "Your species has achieved remarkable progress for such a young civilization. The Empire has been watching your development with great interest. Your transition from atmospheric flight to crewed space travel in mere centuries is unprecedented, if inefficient." Behind Chen, her bridge crew maintained their practiced looks of awe and slight nervousness. They had rehearsed this moment for years, ever since Earth's long-range sensors had first detected the Zylaxian Empire's expansion into neighboring systems. "We have much to learn," Chen replied with carefully calculated humility. "Our understanding of space travel is still in its infancy." Indeed. Vexthor's mandibles clicked. "The Empire has decided to offer Earth-protected status. We will guide your species' development, ensure you don't advance too quickly for your own safety. All we require is your acceptance of certain technological restrictions." Chen exchanged concerned glances with her senior staff, playing her role perfectly. "Restrictions, High Commander. Merely reasonable precautions. Your species will be classified as a Category 7 civilization. You will be permitted to maintain your current level of technology, but must submit all new developments for Imperial approval. This is for your own protection, of course. Many young species destroy themselves by advancing too rapidly. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility whose existence was hidden by quantum field generators far beyond the Zylaxians' ability to detect, Project Aurora continued on schedule. As Chen negotiated the terms of Earth's protected status with Vexthor, Dr. Maya Patel watched the final assembly of humanity's first true warship. The vessel took shape in the massive underwater dock, its dark hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Unlike the gaudy bioorganic ships of the Zylaxians, this craft was built for one purpose: to completely redefine the nature of space warfare. "How many ships do they have in the sector?" General Marcus Torres asked, studying the holographic display showing the Zylaxian fleet movements. 87 capital ships, 212 support vessels. Dr. Paddle replied, her fingers dancing over the quantum interface. "All using bioorganic technology, all dependent on their crystalline computing systems." Torres smiled grimly. "And they have no idea we can see through their cloaking systems." "None. They still think we're using conventional sensors. They haven't even conceived of quantum entanglement detection yet." Paddle brought up another display, showing the progress of Project Aurora's fleet. "We'll have 50 ships ready within 6 months, each one capable of taking on 3 of their capital ships. And they'll never see them coming," Torres mused, watching as robotic assemblers installed the dark energy core into the prototype vessel. "How long do you think we can maintain the deception?" Patel considered the question. The Zalaxians evolved slowly. Think slowly. They took 10,000 years to develop faster than light travel. The idea that we might do it in less than 3 centuries hasn't occurred to them. Their arrogance is our greatest advantage. Above on the surface, Admiral Chen concluded her negotiations with High Commander Vexthor. Earth would accept its Category 7 status, submit to regular inspections, and appear appropriately grateful for the Empire's guidance. The Zalaxians would establish an observation post in orbit, monitoring Earth's development with their superior technology. As the alien ship departed, Chen sent a coded quantum transmission to Project Aurora. Phase 1 complete. They suspect nothing. Proceed with Phase 2. The game was set. Humanity would play the role of the grateful primitive species, while beneath the waves and in hidden bases throughout the solar system, they prepared to demonstrate just how dangerous underestimating humans could be. 6 months after first contact, Dr. Maya Patel stood in a hidden facility on Mars, watching through quantum-shielded windows as automated construction units assembled the newest addition to humanity's secret fleet. The massive underground cavern, carved beneath Olympus Mons, housed 5 of Project Aurora's most advanced vessels. The Zalaxian inspection team above the surface was examining Mars Colony 1, a carefully constructed facade of primitive human settlement. They would find exactly what humanity wanted them to see: struggling environmental systems, basic hydroponics, and colonists who appeared to be barely managing survival on the harsh planet. Status report. General Torres's hologram flickered beside her, transmitted through quantum entanglement channels undetectable by Zalaxian technology. The Artemis is at 98% completion, Patel responded, gesturing to the nearest ship. Unlike the crystalline bioorganic vessels of the Zalaxians, the Artemis was a masterpiece of human engineering. Its dark matter hull absorbed all scanning frequencies, while its quantum core could generate enough energy to power a small sun. And the weapons systems? Patel smiled. We've completed testing on the gravity lance. One shot can collapse a Zalaxian ship's bioorganic structure from the inside out. They'll never know what hit them. A junior scientist rushed into the observation room, tablet in hand. Dr. Patel, we've intercepted a transmission from the Zalaxian fleet. They're planning something big. The quantum display shifted, showing a massive movement of Zalaxian ships throughout the sector. Over 300 vessels were converging on key points around Earth-controlled space. They're establishing a permanent presence, Torres observed grimly. Not just observation posts anymore. It gets worse, the junior scientist added. They're bringing their world sculptor ships, the same ones they used to terraform 3 other civilizations out of their home systems. Patel's hands clenched. World sculptors were the Empire's ultimate tools of control, massive vessels capable of altering a planet's climate and geology. The Zalaxians presented them as tools of benevolent assistance, but their true purpose was to make worlds dependent on Imperial technology for survival. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Chen received the news with outward calm. The Zalaxian ambassador, a towering figure named Zivril, had just finished explaining how the Empire would help Earth achieve its full potential. Your atmosphere is inefficient, Zivril declared, mandibles clicking in what humans now recognize as condescension. Our world sculptors can optimize it for better biological performance. Of course, the process will require regular maintenance from Imperial engineers, but that's a small price for progress. Most generous, Chen replied, while her quantum implant transmitted a single coded phrase to Project Aurora. Accelerate the timeline. Deep beneath the Pacific, the response was immediate. Dr. Patel diverted additional power to the construction units, pushing them to their limits. The risk of detection increased, but speed now outweighed stealth. They're moving faster than we anticipated, Torres said, studying the tactical displays. How soon can we have the fleet ready? 4 months for full deployment, Patel answered. We can have 60% combat ready in 2 months if we cut some corners on the secondary systems. Do it. We won't get another chance if they start terraforming Earth. The next week brought a flurry of activity across the solar system. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt doubled their production rates. Quantum communication networks pulsed with encrypted data as humanity's true military command structure prepared for the possibility of early confrontation. On Mars, the Galaxian inspection team declared the colony's technology appropriately primitive and departed, never detecting the vast complex beneath their feet. As their ship left orbit, Dr. Patel allowed herself a small smile. The Artemis's systems had remained completely invisible to their scans. They can't imagine technology that doesn't glow, she remarked to Torres. Their entire civilization is built on bioluminescent crystals and visible energy fields. The idea of a ship that swallows light rather than emits it never occurs to them. How many ships do we have combat ready? Torres asked. 32 as of today. The Artemis will make 33. Each one carrying enough firepower to match 5 of their capital ships. Torres nodded slowly. And the special weapons. The gravity lances are ready. We've also perfected the quantum disruptors. One hit will shatter their crystalline computing cores. Their entire command and control network will collapse. In orbit, Admiral Chen continued to play her role, expressing appropriate awe as the first world sculptor entered the solar system. The massive vessel, shaped like a blooming crystal flower, dwarfed everything around it. Magnificent, isn't it? Zivarel asked proudly. Soon Earth will know the true benefits of Imperial guidance. Chen smiled diplomatically, while her quantum implant transmitted updated tactical data on the world sculptor's defensive capabilities. Every second of observation was another advantage for the coming conflict. The Galaxians had no idea that their every move was being watched, analyzed, and countered by technology they couldn't even detect. They believed they were shepherding a primitive species towards controlled development. Soon, they would learn just how wrong they were. The world sculptor's first test of Earth's atmosphere sent shockwaves through the planet's weather systems. Storm clouds gathered over the Pacific as the massive alien vessel fired pulses of crystalline energy into the stratosphere. In their underground command center, Earth's leaders watched as weather patterns began to shift. They've started small, Dr. Puddle reported, studying the quantum sensor readings, testing our atmosphere's response to their bioorganic catalysts. Once they're satisfied with the initial results, they'll begin full-scale modification. President Helena Santos sat at the head of the Emergency Council table, her dark eyes fixed on the global weather display. How long until the changes become irreversible? 3 weeks, Paddle replied. Once their crystal matrices integrate with our atmospheric systems, we'll be dependent on their maintenance protocols, just like the Centaurians and the Proxima colonies. Admiral Chen's hologram flickered to life above the table. She was aboard the EDS Sentinel, maintaining Earth's facade of cooperation. The Galaxians are getting impatient with our diplomatic delays. Zivarel is demanding we sign the final authorization for full atmospheric conversion. How many ships do we have ready? Santos asked, turning to General Torres. 47 combat-ready vessels, he answered. All with fully tested weapon systems. We can have another 15 operational within 2 weeks, but we don't have 2 weeks, Chen interrupted. They're planning to begin major atmospheric alterations in 3 days. Zivarel just informed me that the Imperial Council has graciously decided we don't need to understand the process to benefit from it. The room fell silent. Humanity had hoped for more time, but the Galaxians' paternalistic arrogance had accelerated their timeline. Dr. Patel, Santos said quietly, are we ready? Patel brought up a tactical display showing the positions of Earth's hidden fleet. 47 black dots scattered throughout the solar system, each representing a warship that could outmatch anything in the Galaxian arsenal. The gravity lances are combat-proven. Quantum disruptors are at full capacity. Our only concern is fleet coordination. We haven't had time to run full-scale combat simulations. What about their world sculptor? Torres asked. Its defenses are formidable, but predictable. They rely on layered energy fields and crystalline regeneration. Our quantum weapons will bypass both. Patel highlighted several key points on the massive vessel's schematic. 3 synchronized gravity lens hits here, and here will collapse its entire structural matrix. Santos studied the tactical display for a long moment. Earth had spent years preparing for this confrontation, developing technologies that the Zalaxians couldn't even comprehend. But once they revealed their true capabilities, there would be no going back. "Admiral Chen," she said finally, "how many Zalaxian ships are currently in our system?" 412, Chen replied, "including 3 world sculptors and their escort fleets. They're positioning themselves for a full atmospheric conversion project. Their entire regional fleet," Torres noted. "They want to make a show of it. Demonstrate their benevolent superiority to any watching species. Then let's give them a different kind of show," Santos said, her voice hardening. "Dr. Patel, initialize the Aurora Protocol. General Torres, deploy the fleet. Admiral Chen, stall them for 12 more hours. We need all our ships in position." Deep beneath the Pacific, Project Aurora's command center burst into activity. Quantum signals pulsed through hidden relays, activating ships that had waited years for this moment. In bases throughout the solar system, crews rushed to their stations aboard vessels that officially didn't exist. On Mars, the Artemis's engines powered up for the first time, its dark matter hull absorbing all traces of its activation. Similar scenes played out in the asteroid belt, beneath the ice of Europa, and in dozens of other hidden locations. Aboard the Sentinel, Admiral Chen watched a Zalaxian engineering team prepare atmospheric sampling drones. Behind her practiced expression of diplomatic concern, she felt a fierce satisfaction. The Zalaxians had never bothered to ask why humans had accepted their restrictions so easily, why Earth had shown so little resistance to their technological constraints. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their quantum technology or gravity lenses. It was their ability to plan, to deceive, and to strike at precisely the right moment. "High Commander," she said to Zivril, who was explaining the benefits of crystalline atmospheric matrices with patronizing patience, "perhaps we should gather Earth's full leadership council before proceeding. Such a momentous advancement deserves proper ceremony." The alien's mandibles clicked in amusement, always so concerned with procedures. "It is charming, but unnecessary. The Empire knows what is best for developing species." "Nevertheless," Chen insisted, buying the precious hours needed for deployment, "we would be honored to mark this occasion properly." As she spoke, 47 ships of the Aurora fleet moved silently into attack positions, their dark matter hulls invisible to Imperial sensors. The Zalaxians continued their preparations for atmospheric conversion, never suspecting that they were about to become an object lesson in the danger of underestimating humanity. The moment of revelation began with a simple word. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Sentinel, watching Zivril supervise the final preparations for atmospheric conversion. The Zalaxian world sculptors had moved into position, their crystalline structures glowing with accumulated energy. Now, Chen transmitted through her quantum implant. Across the solar system, 47 ships of the Aurora fleet shed their quantum camouflage simultaneously. On Zalaxian sensors, it would appear as if patches of space had suddenly turned into holes of absolute darkness. Zivril's multiple eyes widened as alerts blazed across his neural interface. What is this? Your sensors must be malfunctioning." "No malfunction," Chen replied calmly, dropping the subservient act she had maintained for months. "This is humanity showing you what we're really capable of." The Artemis materialized 50 kilometers from the nearest world sculptor, its dark matter hull seeming to drink in the starlight. Unlike the ornate bioorganic vessels of the Zalaxian fleet, the human ships were angular, predatory, and utterly alien to Imperial sensibilities. "Impossible," Zivril breathed. "Your species is Category 7. You cannot have ships of this size. This technology is beyond your level of development. You never asked why we accepted your restrictions so easily," Chen said, watching as more Aurora ships revealed themselves. You never wondered why we showed so little resistance to your technological constraints. You were so convinced of your superiority that you never considered we might be hiding our true capabilities. In the underground command center, Dr. Patel and General Torres coordinated the fleet's deployment. The Aurora ships moved with perfect precision, taking up positions that had been wargamed thousands of times in quantum simulations. All ships report ready, Torres announced. Gravity lances charged. Quantum disruptors online. President Santos opened a channel to the Zylaxian flagship. This is President Helena Santos of Earth. We have tolerated your patronizing attitude and your attempts to make us dependent on your technology. That ends today. Remove your world sculptors from our system immediately. The response came from High Commander Vexthor himself, his image appearing on screens throughout the command center. This defiance is futile. Whatever primitive weapons you have developed, you cannot stand against the full might of the Imperial fleet. Stand down, and perhaps we will be merciful. Primitive, Patil murmured, entering final targeting coordinates. Let's show them how primitive we are. On Santos's command, the Aurora fleet attacked. The Artemis fired the first shot, its gravity lance striking the nearest world sculptor. The beam was invisible to conventional sensors, but its effects were devastating. The massive Imperial vessel's crystalline structure began to collapse in on itself, its own mass becoming a weapon against its integrity. The Zylaxian fleet responded with a barrage of energy weapons, but their shots passed harmlessly through quantum-shifted space, where Aurora ships had been microseconds before. Humanity's vessels danced through four-dimensional space, striking from impossible angles with weapons that ignored traditional defenses. Impossible. Vexthor raged as a second world sculptor crumpled under concentrated gravity lance fire. Your species cannot have mastered quantum manipulation. You were using chemical rockets less than a century ago. You measured us against your own timeline, Chen replied, watching from the Sentinel as the battle unfolded. You evolved slowly, developed your technology gradually over thousands of years. You never considered that we might advance differently, think differently, fight differently. The Aurora fleet moved like a school of predatory fish, each ship coordinating perfectly through quantum-entangled communications that the Zylaxians couldn't detect, let alone intercept. Where Imperial ships fought as individual units, humanity's vessels operated as a single organism, anticipating and supporting each other's actions. In the command center, Patil monitored the quantum tactical displays. Their fleet coordination is breaking down. The quantum disruptors are shattering their crystalline computing networks. They can't maintain formation without their neural links. Status of the world sculptors, Santos asked. 2 destroyed. The third is retreating. Their escort fleet is in disarray. The battle had lasted less than 15 minutes. The mighty Imperial fleet, pride of the Zylaxian Empire, had been reduced to scattered groups of uncoordinated ships trying desperately to escape the terrible dark vessels that seemed to appear and disappear at will. This is your final warning, Santos transmitted to the remaining Zylaxian ships. Leave our system now. Inform your empire that Earth is not a primitive species to be patronized and controlled. We are not your children to be guided, or your subjects to be dominated. The surviving Imperial ships fled in disarray, their once proud formations shattered. As they retreated, Admiral Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Zylaxians had learned a harsh lesson about the danger of underestimating humanity. They had assumed that technological progress had to follow their pattern, had to conform to their understanding. They had never considered that while they were watching humanity's supposed primitiveness, humanity had been studying them, learning their weaknesses, and preparing to demonstrate just how advanced they really were. 1 month after the Battle of Earth, President Santos stood before the Galactic Council. The Great Chamber, with its towering crystalline spires and floating platforms, had never hosted a Category 7 species before. But humanity was no longer accepting classifications imposed by others. The Zylaxian delegation sat in uncomfortable silence, their usual arrogance shattered by the destruction of half their regional fleet. Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of species watched with intense interest. The defeat of an Imperial fleet by a supposedly primitive species had sent shockwaves through galactic society. For too long, Santos began, her voice carrying through the vast space. The galaxy has operated under a system that assumes all species must develop along the same path, at the same pace. The Zylaxian Empire's attempt to forcibly improve Earth has demonstrated the flaws in this thinking. Dr. Patel and Admiral Chen stood behind their president, wearing dress uniforms that bore no resemblance to the simplified versions they had once shown the Zylaxians. Around them, the chamber buzzed with quantum scanning devices as various species tried to analyze their technology. "The Artemis will now decloak," Santos announced. Through the chamber's transparent dome, the assembled delegates watched as a patch of space above the council station seemed to turn inside out. The Artemis appeared, its dark matter hull absorbing nearby light, creating a ship-shaped void against the starfield. "Impossible," a Zylaxian scientist exclaimed. "Their quantum manipulation technology exceeds our theoretical models." "Because you assumed we would follow your development path," Paddle responded. "You never considered that starting later might be an advantage. We learned from studying other species, found new approaches you hadn't considered, developed technologies that worked on entirely different principles." The Centaurian delegation, whose homeworld had been improved by Zylaxian world sculptors decades ago, leaned forward with particular interest. "Your ships, they could neutralize the atmospheric dependencies the Empire created." "They could," Chen confirmed. "Our gravity lances can safely disrupt the crystalline matrices without damaging planetary ecosystems. We're prepared to offer this assistance to any world seeking independence from Imperial maintenance protocols." The chamber erupted in excited discussion. Species that had long chafed under Zylaxian technological domination suddenly saw a path to freedom. The Empire's strategy of creating dependency through beneficial modifications was crumbling. "This is outrageous," High Commander Vexthor protested. "You cannot simply ignore centuries of established hierarchies." "We already have," Santos replied calmly. "Earth is presenting a new model for galactic cooperation. No more arbitrary categories. No more forced technological dependence. Each species free to develop according to their own nature and abilities." As if to emphasize her point, quantum signals rippled through the chamber as more Aurora ships decloaked around the station. Their dark hulls stood in stark contrast to the crystalline Imperial vessels, a visible reminder that there was more than one path to advanced technology. In the weeks that followed, Earth became a center of diplomatic activity. Species that had been relegated to lower categories sought human assistance in breaking free from Imperial technological constraints. The Centaurians were the first to have their atmospheric dependencies neutralized, their world freed from the need for Zylaxian maintenance. Dr. Paddle found herself leading seminars on alternative technological development, teaching other species how to think beyond the crystalline computing paradigm that had dominated galactic science for millennia. The revelation that humanity had achieved quantum manipulation through dark matter instead of bioorganic crystals sparked a renaissance in theoretical physics. Admiral Chen, meanwhile, worked with General Torres to establish new defensive protocols for Earth's allies. The Aurora fleet began training missions with other species ships, teaching them techniques for quantum-shifted combat that the Empire had never imagined possible. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy had changed fundamentally. The rigid hierarchy of the category system had been replaced by a more fluid network of cooperative relationships. Species that had been deemed primitive were revealing capabilities that had been hidden from Imperial oversight. "They never understood," Paddle remarked to Santos as they watched a Centaurian ship successfully test its first gravity lance. "The very restrictions they placed on us forced us to think differently, to find new paths they hadn't explored." "Human ingenuity," Santos replied with a smile. "We've never been good at staying in boxes others built for us." The Artemis cruised past the viewing window, its dark hull a reminder of how far humanity had come. They had faced an empire that thought them primitive and proved that technological progress wasn't about following established paths. It was about having the courage and creativity to forge new ones. In the end, the Zylaxians' greatest mistake hadn't been underestimating human technology. It had been underestimating the human spirit itself, the drive to push boundaries and refuse limitations imposed by others. That spirit had not only freed Earth, but had changed the galaxy forever. As new allies gathered and old powers adapted to the shifting balance, one thing became clear. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by following the expected path, but by daring to create their own.